Hey, everybody, it's Brian Zielinski again here with another edition of Connected Insights. I'm here with our very own Mark Kennedy, CIO and software solution expert for ShapeConnect. Today, we wanted to talk about the bad vendor breakup. What happens when you have a software service provider and things don't go the right way? What do we see within businesses when those projects don't work out? So I'll kick it over to Mark. When you are working with companies and you're looking at their tech stack, what are the indicators that maybe they don't have the right software partners?
Thank you for the introduction. Yeah, with Valentine's Day coming up here, it's kind of interesting with the bad vendor breakup and the stories that we've seen over the years doing this work. And one of the big things that we see is just a lot of siloed data. So we know that when organizations, maybe they're made promises around a platform or something along those lines, there is definitely a situation that arises where things are still disjointed, even though the platform maybe is not working. And one of the hard parts about that is a lot of organizations kind of get stuck in this sunk cost fallacy world where they have so much invested with the relationship with a vendor. And that could be monetary, it could be time, it could just be effort, could be years. It just allows it gets that gets in the way of them moving on. And so we had one company, the local company, they'd invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into a Salesforce implementation that was trying to be an ERP, and it just didn't work. And so we were able to come in and kind of walk them through why it wasn't working and why they needed to break up with that vendor, why it would be better in the long run for them to move on from that person, even though at the time it felt very hard and was very difficult to move on. We were able to identify a vendor, a correct one, and allowed them to kind of step into that new vendor and continue to grow with them to the point where just this year they were awarded a customer of the year type award at the main conference for this software provider, which was awesome. So that's 3 years later. We also see some situations where maybe it's not a breakup that's needed. Maybe it's a counseling session. We worked with an organization downtown and they were using a platform as well. They had multiple, I should say, they were using multiple different platforms. And in this situation, they actually had the right vendor in there. They just weren't using it correctly and they weren't working with it. And so we just had to come alongside of them. And just like you do in any type of relationship, we had to kind of counsel that relationship back into being a good one that was able to be fruitful. And we also were then able to, in that situation, get rid of a couple of pieces of software as well. So they kind of had a thing going on there where they had some software they didn't need, but they also had the right stuff already in place. So we didn't have to go out and find them a new one. We also work with consolidation. Oh, did you have a question, Brian? Go ahead.
Well, I would just say, what do you see? I think they said $500 billion a year of software goes unused or underutilized. In most cases, do you find that it's people underutilizing software, or is it in many cases people maybe they didn't go through the right selection process to begin with, and therefore they ended up with a partner that's not quite the right fit? Maybe it's both. I mean, what do you see most often when you're in the field?
I think we've seen a mixture of that. I think there is a good, healthy mixture. I do think, though, a lot of it is underutilized software that the implementation journey was never continued. So there's a situation where you get involved with an organization or you're talking to somebody or you're the vendor and they get you to this go live point and then you bring the software live. And at that point, it does fall on a little bit on the customer's shoulders to continue to invest in that relationship. Just like any other relationship that you have with another human being, it's the same with software and services. You have to continue to invest in that relationship. And that can be using new features, keeping up with the software these days as software continues to be released and keeping updated with kind of the new updates that are happening. And that's where we can help kind of come alongside and guide and counsel in that area to be able to show you how to use the software better, how to use something differently. I'm working right now with a company that they've been hand entering a whole bunch of invoices in. And we came in and said, well, wait a minute, we can do this process with a simple couple tweaks in the process frame and save hours a day. And that's something that we're not doing new software, but we're using the existing software and just making it more optimized.
On the front end, when they go through the selection process, is there anything um, companies are just their shortcomings, meaning don't have the technical expertise internally to properly evaluate the software. Um, Maybe don't have a team that can dedicate the time. Um, is that what you see most frequently? And how does outside expertise, outside insights, kind of support the selection process to ensure that you don't get too far down the road and then realize you may have paid a lot of money for the wrong solution.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lack of technical knowledge during the software process or selection process. I think a lot of organizations, especially in the small to mid-market business world, don't have somebody on their team that is able to kind of translate business jargon and technical jargon during an implementation. They also don't have somebody that's willing to kind of push the boundaries a lot of times and ask why. Why are we doing it this way? Why are we carrying this process over into the new software? uh, we can help you with those areas. We can come in and help kind of push that area a little bit, and ask the question, why are we going to do it this way? Why do we need to do it? Is there a better way? Maybe there is a sleeker, more optimized solution for whatever problem we're trying to solve there.
Yeah, it's just hard to get a handle on everything that exists in the marketplace.
Mhm.
There are so many new solutions and then new features that accompany those solutions. That is why we've built the platform, the ShapeConnect platform, is to make sure that we do get the unique insights about different software providers. That we're constantly, they're updating information about the capabilities of their solutions so that we can align it with the needs of a company. Because I think it is impossible to try to go out there as an operations leader within a company, an accounting leader, and try to start to make these selections, and just really understand what is even available to me, without getting too overwhelmed. So,
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot going on out there, and understanding how how those various platforms fit into your business and align with your needs is definitely an area that you need somebody as an expert to come in to be able to help you in those areas, because it can be overwhelming otherwise, and then you never make a decision and you never move forward.
yeah, it just seems like the best relationships do work when there is a sense that a team is established internally, and then there's outside experts, outside service providers that can support either the selection process, which we have done, and then also support ongoing things like integrations. That's why we have software and service providers on the platform. So as you do put the software in, there becomes a need for some level of expertise to maybe better integrate your tech stack. Maybe Mark, you just did a project, right, with a company. They put in a system for their ambulance services company and then needed a more robust dashboard. And we were able to grab a service provider from ShapeConnect. Maybe you can elaborate on that project a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, not only in that organization do we come in and eliminate 9 different softwares and consolidate down to a single platform, along with various communication efforts as well, consolidating that and reducing a ton of spend in that areas. We then, once the data was flowing into it, we're able to find a custom dashboard developer, from within the ShapeConnect ecosystem that was able to connect to the new platform and then start providing them with some really nice looking interactive reporting, so that the station managers and the people who need the information could interact with the data and be able to print various things out and bring them to various customers of theirs, so that they're able to kind of do some marketing and know how well they're doing out there in the field.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I've seen some on the flip side of that where you've worked with companies on a CRM selection, and then we've worked, Yvonne, myself have worked to bring in a website provider, WordPress developer that could put together a front end, make sure that it's connected up to the CRM to make sure that lead generation and everything does flow effectively from your online presence into the back end. So there is a growing synergy between, the software you select and I think the service providers that kind of support your utilization of tools, and just more broadly your
Mhm.
business. So,
Yeah,
um,
I mean, I know I focus on the software side of the house. What do you look seeing on the services side? Are you seeing, I mean, is every vendor relationship there smooth?
I, I think we see a lot more of the uh, instances of people finding freelancers and using platforms to find them, or they find them in their local networking. And in many cases, that works out. That can be effective, especially if you're a new business and you don't have a large budget for branding or a new website. But I think for companies looking for trusted partners, we've seen a real gap in terms of um, getting what you want and the capabilities of the service provider, which again, we try to align with the ShapeConnect platforms. One recent example was a company called Request Technologies who got a website from a local freelancer in their building. The website didn't really have, let's call it, any information about what the business was, meaning IT staffing
Mm.
firm. It didn't say that above the fold. And we can show that. We'll illustrate that on screen here a little bit, but you do want your website to reflect your brand. And it just didn't seem like the provider had the capability to do. They also had spent about $14,000 with that provider over 2 years, which for the product they had was an absorbent amount of money.
Mhm.
So again, finding a different provider, they knew something wasn't right. Request understood there was an issue with the site. The site wasn't delivering lead generation at all. And then being able to put in a new site, half the cost, and then having a partner long term, a service provider where there wouldn't be a quick vendor breakup, that this partner could support them beyond just their website throughout their SEO journey as well. So that's what we look for to begin with, is customers that want long-term trusted relationships. And we already have the provider stack that is going to deliver, that want a long-term relationship as well and have been
Mhm.
around a minute and have the, kind of the experience, to deliver. So, it's all about mindset, I think. And it's also about the scoping piece too on the front end, just like you do with software selection.
Mhm.
Those are robust projects, but even as a service, you're selecting a service provider, going through that diagnostic experience, we have a specialized intake so that companies do scope the requirements properly and, avoid maybe picking a provider maybe at the wrong time. Might be the right provider, but wrong time. Um, and we've seen those instances where somebody wanted to do $40,000 of digital ads, but their website wasn't in the right place to do so.
Mhm.
And those are another example of just kind of making sure you're going to have a good relationship by following kind of the right process, and the right roadmap for your business too. So,
Yeah, and I think that's where we can take a holistic view as well. Not only do we service on that front end side of being able to bring the leads in on a website or something along those lines, but then bringing that in so that they're captured in the correct platform. So we're able to kind of blend those to the services and the software together. And again, along and being able to then allow an organization to become optimized with those leads that are kind of coming in or whatever other service areas that we're touching.
yeah. And the bigger thing we're seeing increasingly with the relationships isn't just my company having a relationship with a service provider. We all need to use service providers as small and mid market businesses, but also we've been able to facilitate relationships between service providers to help a company,
Mhm.
right? So they're using a company for one specific service. Take a HR company we recently matched with a business. They needed the general support, new handbooks, um, employee relations guides, different things like that. But there was a leadership development component in that company that needed to be addressed. And we did find another HR provider who could work with the initial HR provider we had recommended and bring in that leadership development component. So long and short, it's all about the relationships and having intimate knowledge of what the providers can do, and then making sure providers work well together, to support your business. So, um, we hope that's helpful, for the the time of year it is, and to avoid some of the excessive, overspend 500 billion on software a year. I think it was 46% of business leaders say they spend way too much time in switching providers when they find an
Mhm.
IT firm or a marketing agency and just not feeling like they're jiving with those entities. Uh, they have to go out and make a new selection, and it's not just the monetary cost. It is the time costs as well that weigh on leaders. So, um, here's to a better 2025 for finding the right partners.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Mark, thank you for your
Excellent.
time. Yeah, we'll keep people up to date, and hopefully talk more about the success stories versus the bad breakups in the next go around here.
Yes. I'm looking forward to it as well. Thanks, Brian.